Nearly 4 years ago, I made a very special aquarium. It was designed within the Nano low-tech framework for a personal favorite of mine, Goldring Danios. Being one of the last projects I did before going full-time on YouTube, it also holds sentimental value. Since then, a lot has occurred in my life and within this tank. It's remained pristine for years, housing the Danios alongside green Kabotai rasbora, Amano shrimp, cherry shrimp, snails, and a few other transient inhabitants. The vast majority are still doing well to this very day, especially the shrimp. The Amanos are upwards of 2 inches long, and what began as 6 cherry shrimp has multiplied to hundreds. Although I still enjoy this tank, it's just not what it used to be. The glass is scratched everywhere, Süßwassertung has taken over, stagcorn algae has sprung up, the substrate is breaking down, and simply put, it's ready for a reset. I still want to keep the essence of what this aquascape initially was, but with improvements that should allow it to serve the animals better and last far beyond 4 years. The first improvement is a larger setup. This was an excellent opportunity to finish what I started last year with the IKEA aquariums. Using Utrusta glass shelves, I devised a system to create reasonably priced rimless glass aquariums. What I'm making here is the equivalent to 30 gallons or 113 liters. Including silicone, it cost right around $100 US to make. For reference, this is nearly double the size of the previous tank, which also retailed for $100. I'll link up a video that explains this process in extensive detail if you'd like to learn more. Another area of improvement is the back covering. I painted the tank before, which is a process I don't like. It's annoying to apply, and years later, you'll see that it's chipping off. Instead, I'll install a window frost film. With water and a squeegee, the task is a breeze. Being a rimless aquarium, I also had to install a self-leveling mat on the bottom to protect the glass from inconsistencies. I wanted to change up the lighting as well. The previous LED strip light has served the tank well, but it's annoying to work around during maintenance. Switching to lights with brackets will make that a non-issue, and they look pretty cool. From a foundational level, this aquarium is already a lot different than before. Furthermore, I even did a water test, which I rarely do on custom builds. I used a different brand of silicone this time around and wanted to take the extra step. When considering the hardscape, I didn't want to change much. I used pagoda stone and Mupani wood before, both of which are some of my favorites. Pagoda stone looks fantastic, and Mupani wood lasts incredibly long with no noticeable degradation, even after being in a tank for years. For comparison, Manzanita looks similar, but it doesn't hold up like that. Even within a year, it starts getting soft and brittle. Because of this, I wanted to use Mupani again, but I'll use different stones. Remember the sandstone from the recent Aquascape Ecosystem pond build? Well, I had smaller pieces left over that I've been saving for an indoor scape. They have great texture and coloring, reminiscent of Pagoda, so it was a no-brainer. I just had to spray them off with a pressure washer to remove dirt and debris. These look incredible and are likely a preferable material. Despite being somewhat brittle, sandstone is inert and porous. This porosity gives the stone moisture-wicking properties, and I'd imagine more surface area for beneficial bacteria to colonize. Another significant area of improvement could be with the substrate. Previously, I mixed up a blend of aqua soil with clay gravel substrate for the plants, which I then topped with sand for aesthetics. This look never lasts though. The aqua soil always breaks down, migrates to the surface, or both. In present day, virtually none of the sand is visible anymore, and this fine layer of dust is easily disturbed. A solution that's been working well for me are substrate bags. That's what I did in the low-tech guppy tank with great success. What makes this possible is a polyester mesh fabric. This will retain a vast majority of the particles while still allowing the roots to gain access to the substrate. I'll use aqua soil again, which begins as these little pellets. I'll put sand in the mix to add spaces between and aerate as these break down. I've also been enjoying topsoil in my aquariums a lot lately. I just screen it well to remove larger particles before use. Combined in a uniform blend, these should work harmoniously within the substrate bags. I poured a generous amount onto the fabric and bunched it up, leaving extra space at the top. I sealed this off with a zip tie and removed the excess. Having extra space at the top is essential for the bags to sit as flat as possible. Back over at the tank, and I was just about to get started when somebody wanted my attention. The dwarf frogs are highly perceptive and beg for food anytime they know I'm near. Sorry buddies, you know feeding time isn't till later. The stones I'm about to use are heavy and could crack the bottom if placed directly on the glass. Spreading this weight over a larger surface area drastically reduces risk. Egg crate light diffuser is probably one of the best materials for the task. On top of this is where the substrate bags will go. I laid them out evenly and as flat as possible with the zip ties facing downward. This foundation will provide nutrients for the plants while being contained, making it easier to maintain the desired aesthetic, which in this case is natural sand. I concealed the bags with a generous layer that will be easy to plant further in the build. With the groundwork established, I could finally have fun with Escape. I love this large flat piece because it created a background aesthetic without taking up much room. It will serve a dual function as well, which you'll see later on. I worked a few other stones along the outskirts of this to create a simple yet effective scape. That's the beauty of having larger character stones like these. The trick of course will be to bring the look full circle with plants and driftwood. I enjoyed the root look from the previous setup and intend to replicate that here, but I want most of the stonework to remain visible. With this in mind, I did my best to keep a dynamic and consistent flow. My plan is to view this tank for years to come, so I took the extra time to create a layout that I really enjoyed. And even though I like it now, I know it will look even more incredible with plants. Another inclusion I think makes a huge difference is epoxy. When mixed, this aquarium-safe epoxy ensures the wood won't float when submerged initially and holds the scape together long term. This makes the setup easier to maintain because you're not working around some precarious arrangement. Plus, it's one of the easiest adhesives to remove when reusing the materials for a different setup. However, it doesn't look great and is best placed in unseen locations. And because it cures quickly, working in steps and securing portions of the hardscape at a time is made easy without disturbing anything. On top of that, I placed smaller stones throughout for more interest. I'm incredibly pleased with the result. I think it has exceptional movement and composition. It also maintains the essence of the previous scape while being distinctly different from and building upon its foundation. A further area of improvement that made sense was filtration. Previously I used a hang-on back filter which has been reliable and effective. However, a canister filter is more appropriate for a setup of this nature. Additionally, I outfitted it with stainless steel lily pipes that mount directly onto the glass. These have a premium feel, match the light, and are more durable than the fragile glass equivalent. A sponge pre-filter was also mandatory since this will become a shrimp tank. From this view, you can appreciate how it complements what I already had going on and see something else I enhanced. I was far more conscious about the space around the hardscape this time. Everything was too close to the glass before, making it tedious to maintain, especially when I'd have to scrape it. That should never be an issue in this one because I can comfortably work around the entire hardscape. That leads to the final area of improvement, the plants. I'll use most of what I did previously, excluding Süßwassertang. I love it and think it looks great, but it tends to dominate everything else once established. I also have more plants to work with this time to better achieve the look I wanted years ago, beginning with the epiphytes. Obviously these look good, but they'll help do a few things. First, simply to break up the appearance of the hardscape. Second is to hide any areas of epoxy that are still visible. Finally, to fill in space and create visual barriers for the inhabitants. After adding these, and throughout the whole planting process for that matter, I sprayed it all down to ensure nothing dried up. As you can imagine, these plants won't really utilize the substrate bags, but everything else will. I added a few stem plants, but the main feature I wanted but didn't achieve previously was a forest of Cryptocoryne. It's one of my favorite aquatic plants that I feel often gets overlooked, and when in large numbers, it's absolutely breathtaking. I mainly used green varieties here as a base, with bronze and key locations for interest. I had to include another water lily as well. With the base planting addressed, I could fill it up and better understand how to proceed. I netted out debris, allowed it to settle overnight, and returned to find the tank riddled with tannins. I expected this, and it will take upwards of 6 months until the process is complete. It's probably the only con to using Mupani wood, unless you're going for a blackwater aesthetic. Anyway, I pulled trimmings of Rotala from the old tank and planted them on the left. The 2 largest lily pads got damaged in the build as well. I trimmed them off so the plant can focus its energy on new growth. Remember the space behind the rock? I purposefully did that to account for riparian plant growth using the technique from the revised Crystal Gems tank. I suppose this is an improvement as well, due to how efficient they are at absorbing nutrients and thus minimizing algae growth. I simply chopped filter sponge to nestle plants in. These were initially cuttings that I propagated from the frog tank, growing in the same way. As usual, I cleaned the roots, sandwiched them between the sponge, and then behind the rock. I added others in the same way, along with a smaller variety of Syngonium from the Gems tank. In areas where the sponge is still visible, it's easily hidden with Java moss. I would have added even more terrestrial plants, but that's all I had for now. I can either wait for these to fill in, or get more later. In the meantime, I'll do a water change to reset the tank's look. I'm extremely glad that I revisited this concept with so many improvements. I just love the hardscape, which I'd enjoy even without the plants. They just take it to the next level, and will continue to do so as they mature. Looking at it now though, there's no getting around the fact that it still looks new. I want to see lily pads throughout, Bulbitis engulfing the left, moss along the branches, plants bursting from the surface, and the crypt carpet. That's probably the part I'm most excited about because this plant never looks right at first. Neither does Hemigraphis. It's fickle and always withers when transplanted into a setup like this. As long as the roots are fully submerged, which they are here, I guarantee it will perk up in a day or two. I did my best to set in motion a specific vision, and I'm confident it will look as I imagined, but we're dealing with nature here. As you saw, it will take on a life of its own if left unattended. I'd say the original tank looked its best in the 1 to 3 year time span, but I haven't maintained the aesthetic in over a year. I knew it was on its way out and that I'd be doing this one eventually, so I just kinda let it do its thing. While not aesthetically what it was, it's still a viable home. With that, I'm sure you realize that I'm not adding the animals to the new one just yet. I'd prefer to let the new one establish longer, since the fish are coming from an environment that's highly seasoned. Plus, rounding up the cherry shrimp will be an ongoing process, I'm sure. And strangely enough, this is kind of one of those full circle moments for me. As I was editing all of this, it brought me back to older times and had me asking myself, what do I even want from an aquarium? The answer is simple. I want naturalistic setups that look as good as possible, while also being low maintenance and providing the best environment for the animals. That often involves redoing things because I keep learning, but I expect the redos to happen less frequently as I continue to build larger, more thought out setups like this.